My name is Dan Tella. I'm the VP of Marketing and Operations at Essential Software Solutions. Today's webinar is part of our digital transformation series, and today we're talking about the automation of tax management and remittance using Avalara software. But before we get going, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping if we could. If we first look down the left-hand side of your screen, it'll look something similar to this. You're going to see questions and chat. Feel free to ask questions at any point during this presentation, and I will hold it to the end and make sure that it's answered. You can also ask questions through chat. Either one will serve the same purpose. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Jamal with Avalara Software. He and his team are here to articulate what's going on with their solution and how it integrates with CloudSuite Industrial and Visual Manufacturing, depending on which ERP you use. So, Jamal, I've made you trainer. You can now share your screen and proceed with the presentation.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry for the delay. Thank you, Dan. Jason, Antonio, and I appreciate the opportunity to be guest trainers today and take part in Essential Software's digital transformation series. I want to mention before we begin that we will have an opportunity to win. You will have an opportunity to win a $50 gift card at the conclusion of the webinar. The first person to type the correct answer to questions that we ask that will be related to the material that we share will receive a $50 virtual Visa gift card. If time permits, we'll actually do 2 questions.
Okay, so you should see my screen, Avalara and Essential Software.
Yep.
Very good.
So for our agenda today, we'll do some quick introductions. I'll walk you through an overview of Avalara. Antonio will then take over to dive into Economic Nexus and why Avalara. Jason will bring us home with Avalara consumer use, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes left for Q&A. Let's start with Antonio. Go ahead and do an introduction there.
Yes, hi. So my name is Antonio Neira. I've been with Avalara for a little over 8 years, helping companies automate their sales tax process. Before coming to Avalara, I was actually an account manager at Infor for about 3.5 years, helping companies with ERP-related topics and projects. So it's nice to stay in the Infor space and be able to help customers that are looking to automate their sales tax process on Infor ERPs and be able to provide assistance as needed.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Warren. I'm a founding team member here at Avalara, and I'm also the team lead for our consumer use tax solution. Thank you for the opportunity to be a co-trainer today. Looking forward to presenting what we have for you.
And I'm Jamal Sims, Strategic Alliance Manager here at Avalara. Been with Avalara for just over 4 years. I've been in many different capacities as an account manager, sales executive, and now Strategic Alliance Manager here, being the main point of contact for Essential Software. Thank you, guys. So who is Avalara? We were founded in 2004 to tackle the problem of sales tax. We now serve more than 30,000 customers through more than 700 pre-built integrations. We have offices here in the US, UK, excuse me, Brazil, India, and Belgium. And Antonio, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, perfect. So let's talk about why we're here, right? We're talking about economic nexus being one of the topics. But before jumping into that subject, I want to talk about sales tax compliance. So why is it important to talk about sales tax compliance? So normally when I talk to customers, in a lot of situations, they come to me looking for a tax table or some type of tax data that they can plug into their ERP system. And that's usually top of mind, right? I want a sales tax rate that I can plug in. But behind that, there's a lot of situations, a lot of subjects that should be addressed. In fact, a few weeks ago, I was talking to a customer who wanted that specific need. He wanted a sales tax table that he can plug into the system. So we start talking about why do you need that? Let's talk about your process, where you're registered. And we realized that he had the way that he conducted his business, he was doing business in a lot of other states that he wasn't aware of that he needed to register in. Nexus is a big topic that hides underneath a layer that should be addressed, that should be reviewed internally. We'll be talking a little more on Nexus. Then there came the question, do you guys sell products? Do you guys ship those products? Do you guys do services on those products? Do you guys do installations? And the situation with this customer that I was talking to, yes, he did that. But the next question came up, do you have the resources internally to know exactly what states will tax or exempt for those items or services that you will be offering? The answer was no. Then we talked about the details, the jurisdictional details of a sales tax calculation, whether he was able to handle that. Exemption certificate management, be able to know exactly when a certificate it's needed, and if it was good, if it was updated, or if it was valid at that time. The goal here is to be prepared in case there's ever the need to go through an audit, to be able to have that information readily available, to know for sure that everything is okay. And I guess the question is, if there's an audit today, how likely are you that you're ready for it, that everything that you've done is 100% accurate and good? And in fact, there was a study done by the Wakefield Research back in 2017, and they asked a large number of customers that specific question. 75% of them said that an auditor would likely find mistakes if they were to go through an audit. So in reality, it's not just a sales tax calculations, but there's a lot of topics that should be addressed as we explore this. Back then, in June 21st, 2018, something major happened, and it's basically South Dakota versus Wayfair ruling. I'm not sure if you guys know that, but basically, the states had the ability to not only track whether or not you had a building or an employee or a physical location or inventory or something that tie you to a state. Now they're adding another criteria, which was the sales that you do into a state, either the amount of sales that you're doing to the state, or sometimes the quantity of sales that you deliver into a state, and they consider that a nexus triggering activity. So this happens in June 21st, 2018. I have a map printed out in July of that basically a few weeks later, of what states were actually enforcing that. And there were 19 states within a month period. They're already enforcing some sort of economic nexus rule. And then if we continue, we look at this, it varies by state. So it could be, the threshold could be $100,000, like this is in North Dakota and South Dakota, in sales. In some other locations, it's not just the amount of sales, but also the OR factor, or 200 separate transactions. They could even be $5 sales, but if you're doing 200 or more of those transactions, then you are compelled to register in that state. They all vary, they're all complicated. In Kansas, for example, they don't have a threshold. Basically, every sale counts. So it's very complex, very tedious, time-consuming, open to risk. So what can we do about it? Well, what we do here at Avalara is we provide automation so that companies don't have to be dealing with the research that has to do with maintaining all this data accurately. So with Avalara, we can tie into your Infor ERPs, and could be any application that you're running. Could be CSI, could be Visual, or any system that requires sales tax. If you're quoting outside of these two ERPs, doesn't matter. We have APIs that can tie into that system to talk to Avatax. In Avatax, then, we'll update all the different tax tables, all the tax rules, product taxability. Anytime that the government decides to update any of these rates, Avatax gets the update. You'll simply be making a tax call into the Avatax system real time, and then the Avatax will get some data from that order or transaction. We'll know exactly who this customer is. Is this customer taxable or exempt? Are the products taxable or exempt? Maybe you have a product and you have the freight associated with that product, and maybe that is going being shipped to come to California via common carrier. Well, in that situation, maybe the line item one, which is the product, will be taxable, and the freight will be exempt from sales tax. All that information is something that Avalara already knows. You don't have to worry about updating or researching tax rules to get that information. Your system will make automatic lookups into Avatax to get the data real time. And it happens very, very quickly. Average round trip calculation is about 4/10 of a second to go out to the Avatax system, get the data, and send it right back to the ERP or the quoting tool, whatever you may be using. So that is our main component called Avatax. There are a couple of other applications that work side by side with Avatax. But before that, I wanted to talk to you one more thing about the Avatax system, that we're tracking all of your sales. So if you're delivering to other states that you're not registered, the Avatax system is going to let you know when you're approaching a state or you reach a threshold or approaching a threshold into that state, so you can be prepared and be proactive about registering that location as well. Our team here at Avalara, we can help with the registration. We can help with anything needed to make sure you're compliant in those new states that you may be adding. So that is the Avatax system. The other solution that works side by side with Avatax is an application called Cert Capture. Now, Cert Capture tracks or tackles the other side, right? So Avatax is all the calculation, all the tax logic, right? Cert Capture is a tool to track and manage exemption certificates. So as you deal with the collection and managing of exemption certificate, Cert Capture will allow you to build campaigns, know exactly when a certificate needs to be updated. So we know exactly in Colorado, for example, a resale certificate needs to be updated every 2 years. In Florida, they need to be updated every single year. So Avalara already knows that. So through the Cert Capture system, we'll let you know you have X amount of certificates that are going to be expiring in the next 90 days. What would you like to do about it? Well, you can build a campaign, request a new certificate from those customers, send it as an email campaign directly through Cert Capture. Those customers will get a notification sent by Cert Capture asking them to update their records and giving those customers a link that they can click on, go through a wizard, submit the information that is needed by that certificate that they need. For example, if it's for resale and it's for California, maybe they need just a description of the item that they're buying, what items they're buying, of course, and a permit number. They can sign it right there on the screen, submit it. It'll be uploaded into Cert Capture in electronic format. And that way, that customer has uploaded information into your tax system. And whenever an order is processed for that specific customer, we'll know exactly where to exempt those transactions based on if we have a valid exemption certificate on file. And the final piece of this end-to-end sales tax automation, it's the filing service, the ability for Avalara to prepare those returns and send that information to the taxing authorities, to the government. Not only just preparation, but also filing and paying those returns. We take care of tax notices as well. So if state comes back to you, they have a question about a return that Avalara has filed, just send it right back to us. We'll resolve it on your behalf, and we'll let you know basically what we did on your behalf for that tax notice. We do a lot of returns for a lot of customers. Right there, you see almost $29 billion in taxes prepared and remitted by Avalara. So we have the departments for everything that you need, including in case you are curious about where you have exposure, where you need to register. We have nexus analysis that we can do on your behalf. If you feel like you should have registered in a state and you haven't, well, you can talk to our tax compliance team. We have a team that will basically work with you on voluntary disclosure agreements, for example. So moving on here, So compliance is not optional. Everybody has to do that, right? So we all need to be accountable for calculating the tax, making sure it's remitted to the states on a timely fashion, and the states knows that it's complicated. It's a major source of revenue for the state, and that's why they're enforcing rules like economic nexus. Other ones is the marketplace fairness laws or the use tax reporting laws, and in reality, being prepared to in case there's an audit is not really the main reason why companies will automate. Usually there's another trigger. Maybe they get acquired or they acquire the company, or maybe they have a new customer. In fact, I was talking to a customer a few weeks ago that they were expanding to a lot more states because one of their clients required them to collect sales tax wherever they were delivering products to. It was a major company in the US, and one of the requirements was, I need you guys to collect sales tax. I don't want to be assessing the sales tax. I want you guys to handle it all. So they had to, in order to conduct business with this company, they had to go ahead and register in every single state. So they came to us for assistance for that whole process. So very quickly, 5 steps for managing sales tax compliance. Number 1, know where you have business, where you have exposure, where you need to register. And we can do that through a nexus analysis, again, through our tax advisory team, just to make sure that the footprint that you have, it's valid, that you're actually covering the states that you're conducting business based on any criteria needed, whether it may be a building or employee or a 1099 contractor or economic nexus rules and the deliveries that you're doing into the state. And not just taxable deliveries, as I've said before, but also it could be exempt sales that you're doing into the state as well. That's number 1. Once we know that, we can take the next step. What do we do? Well, we can do a registration into states that you need to register. There are a lot of programs out there that we can discuss. One of them is called the Streamlined Sales Tax Program, where it basically gives you free registrations. We can talk about that in more detail as a one-on-one conversation with your team. And then once we have that, once we know where you're registered and we get you registered in those locations, then it comes the introduction of Avalara Avatax to calculate the sales tax needed for any location, or let you know a transaction that should be exempt from sales tax as well, backed up with an exemption certificate on file, tracked through CertCapture, and eventually file the returns on your behalf. So very quickly, in a very high level, that's how the application works. I'm going to pass this over to Jason to talk about consumer use tax. Jason, would you like me to stop sharing so you can continue, or would you like to use my screen?
We'll use your screen, given our experience so far with screen sharing. Is that okay with you?
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonio. And, Antonio has shared with you really tax compliance and the importance of it on the sales side of every business throughout the US, or even companies overseas that are selling into the US. And so I've been invited to talk to you today about the 4th pillar in the Avalara platform, which is tax compliance for the purchasing side of your business. It's so important, but even today, so many companies just don't have the resources, or they lack the knowledge to understand the exposure that can come from not appropriately assessing tax determination on purchases. All too often, companies rely on vendors and assume that vendors that they are buying from are making the appropriate decisions. So Avalara, earlier this year, rolled out a new module, Avalara Consumer Use, and it is an offline batch-oriented solution. So it can work with any of the Infor ERP solutions, given the nature of the batch processing, and it really plays nicely into providing a solution that is powerful and easy to use. And on the next slide, I just want to give you kind of a visual representation on what we're talking about here. And I'd also like to share with you just one specific example that we see most companies across all industries really having to come to terms with. And ultimately, it ends up being a surprise in the event of an audit. But you can see here, this is just a visual representation of how the AP invoice detail can be imported very easily into the Avalara platform. And through Avalara Consumer Use, there is a set of automated processing rules that will analyze the data both before any determination is done across all purchases, as well as after the results have been produced in real time. And post-calculation, post-determination, the Avalara Consumer Use module will lay out any of those outlier purchases so that you can easily review them, update them for both allocation as well as distribution across multiple locations. And ultimately, you can accurately report the determined consumer use tax as a single part of the overall tax reporting and tax filing process. So if we could go to the next slide, I would like to share with you just a specific example. Software as a service is becoming a very common way that all companies are deploying technology and software across their organization to empower their employees to be more productive and make their jobs easier. But the states have different rules with software as a service. And so just by way of example, bear in mind, we see a lot of companies doing central purchasing of software as a service, but they have employees all throughout the country. As it stands today, there are only 19 states that consider software as a service to be taxable in some way, either fully taxable or partially taxable. So this is one example of where, by doing a monthly analysis across all of your purchases, you can easily find where vendors may be overcharging or undercharging at the time of purchase. So this is going to reduce your liability, your exposure with the states. It's going to accurately determine liability from consumer use tax and automatically incorporate that as a part of the returns, the reporting and the returns. The way that this information is consumed by the Avalara service is through our next generation data importing, and you can see that here. It provides an easy way for you to get all of the AP invoice data into the Avalara service. Next slide, please. And you can continue here. Thank you, Antonio. I know we're running short on time and getting near the end of the hour. The bottom of the hour, I should say. But here you can see, and this is just another visual representation. This makes it easy for you to centralize all of your purchasing, do accurate analysis to determine whether or not there's something about the products that you've purchased as far as where they're being used, how they're being used, and when they're being used, so that you can then accurately report and assess any additional tax that might be due across those purchases. You can filter this and these decisions in a way that the service will then automatically make these decisions for you. And as Antonio is showing here on his screen, you can see that there's also, for those outliers, an easy way to categorize those purchases that might need some additional review. Or you may have items that you purchase that you know should just automatically be reported on. You can establish that dollar-based threshold. And then you may have vendors where you know it's been an issue, you've done your own analysis, or you've gone through audit. And anytime you buy from those vendors, the service knows to go ahead and automatically report and file tax on those purchases. So the next slide, please. So if you could just scroll through this, I know it's kind of, there we go. It's got just a graphic going on there. But we at Avalara, and this speaks back to what Antonio shared with you today in the overarching presentation, it's our goal through technology to hopefully help you to check all of these boxes. But we know that for every company that is going through this sort of decision on how to automate, when to automate, and whether you should, can you at least gain or get one of these 4 check marks? Can you gain control across all of your purchasing? I talked to a CPA recently, and he was sharing with me that purchasing for companies tends to be a lot like the wild, wild west, in that there's just a significant gap in the controls and the transparency and the ability to do analytics and accurate assessment across all purchases. And so this tool will help you to hopefully gain control across all 4 of these aspects of just improving your process, reducing your costs, and ultimately having a net effect that will help you in growth as well as customer service. And Antonio, I think we're nearing the end of the deck. If you advance to the next slide. So thank you so much. I'll turn it back over to Dan and Jamal to see if we have any questions or if we want to do the giveaway.
Yeah, let's jump into the question. Jason, you had a great question. Let's go ahead and ask that question.
Yeah, I don't see any questions coming across, but I will say that one of the most common questions is, how does the service itself, how does the data get into the system? We know that we can integrate onto the AR side with the integration into the Infor ERPs. Well, with this system, with Avalara Consumer Use, it's all about kind of the CSV file format.
All right, everybody. I want to thank you for your time today. I want to say that some of that information at the beginning about sales tax nexus in the U.S., I think a lot of Canadian companies might have some unexposed liabilities there, and I think that was a great education for everybody that's on the call and everybody that watches the recording later on. So I want to thank you for your time today. Jamal, Jason, Antonio, that was a great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.